It has to end. Like it's just enough. And I think that the rest of the Arab world, luckily, now they're starting to really realize enough. Like they're not coming in with their coalitions like they used to before. Now they're staying out of it. Or like when Iran was attacking Israel, you had Jordan and Saudi Arabia protecting Israel. So it's like they don't have the support of the Arab world that they did before. Now people just want to live. They're thinking about how relationships with Israel means it's financially viable. They want peace for their people. They are fine to use Palestinians as fodder for their own war, but they're not going to go and risk their lives. They're not going to go and risk the lives of their people. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Yasmine Mohammed podcast. Today, my guest is Fadi. Fadi was born in Saudi Arabia in the 80s to Palestinian parents. In his childhood, he was force-fed the 5 Islamic books as doctrine. And during university in Jordan, a friend's admission of atheism ignited something in Fadi, leading him to quietly leave the faith at 21 under the shadow of apostasy laws. Losing his mother in 2012 became a turning point, and Fadi stopped apologizing for who he was. He gave up trying to please everyone, and years later, he met his British partner in Qatar, and together they've made their way to the UK, where they live with their dogs now, a life he once only dreamed of. Welcome, Fadi.
Thank you. Thanks, Yasmine. Yeah,
It's an
that was
absolute
that was a journey. It was a hell of a journey. It does feel like I've been alive for more than a couple of 100 years. So yeah,
Yeah, and you've crossed thousands of years going from Saudi Arabia to the
yeah,
UK. It probably feels like you got in like a DeLorean and you were like, or some kind of like time machine, and you've
yeah,
moved forward in time because I'm sure it's a completely different world. I can see
yeah.
behind you. I love behind you. You've got group therapy. You've got your haram wine. You got all these haram drinks around you, and you've got a Hebrew t-shirt on too. Oh, so much
I
haram
just
going on.
hey, shalom. Yeah,
Beautiful. Love it. Wonderful. Yeah, you're very, very
thanks.
popular. People are so excited about this episode with you. They're so excited to be speaking with you. It's rare to hear a Palestinian who is speaking so clearly on this topic. You know what I mean? So rationally.
And it shouldn't be like that.
It shouldn't be like that. And even when there are Palestinian voices who are like you and me, it's scary to speak up, right? It's
Yeah,
scary for them to come forward. So it's rare.
absolutely.
Yeah. So before we get to your life currently now and how so many people know you because of your online work, tell me what it was like growing up in Saudi as a Palestinian, because I've heard from people who were born and raised there with families from Sudan and Egypt and other, you know, non-Gulf areas, or actually non-Saudis, really, non-Saudi nationals living in Saudi
Hmm.
Arabia. They always feel like foreigners. They always feel like outsiders, even if their family has been there for generations. They never really feel welcomed into the country, into the culture, into the community. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, I mean, from the very start, you know that this is not your country, but I didn't realize until I went to school, to be honest, because I was born into a big family. I've got 5 sisters and 3 brothers. So uh, growing up at home, it felt like we were in our own country and we had access to this American compound, Aramco.
Hmm. Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, but that was where we spent our weekend. So honestly, it was all normal until I went to school, and that was like a reality check for me, because then that's when you start hearing like I didn't even know like people hated Palestinians so much because the kids would be repeating what they hear their parents
Mm.
say. So they used to say stuff like, "Why don't you go and fight in your country? Why don't you?" go and liberate your country. And I have no idea what my country was or what they're talking about. Anyway, I just I don't I hear stories from people here in England. They said that it would take them, I mean, the ethnic minorities, it would take them up until they are maybe 13 or 14 years old to know that this is not their country. To me, it was from the very beginning, from when I was 7, I knew. And it was not only the students, the teachers as well, they enabled this behavior. Like they were not
Mm.
protecting us. I was in a classroom where I was the only non-Saudi at some point. So it was obvious, like I would stand out on the only non-Saudi kid. The first day, I still remember it like it happened yesterday when my dad dropped me at the school. I started crying as soon as he left, but thinking about it now, I think the reason I was crying is that everyone else looked like, I mean, not facial features, but they were wearing the same thing. They were wearing that thobe and the hat, and we didn't have school uniform. Like it wasn't uh, compulsory or anything. So yeah, that felt so weird. Like, well, why am I the
Yeah.
only one who's not wearing white? And
Yeah.
yeah, they had to bring my older brother, who was in third grade, down to sit next to me to reassure me. But he was also getting impatient. He just thought, "Okay, are you okay now?"
Mm.
And then he had to leave. I think, I coped, but it was a bit like it was shocking to start with.
I mean, the way everybody in Saudi and Qatar, the way everybody, all the men are in white and all the women are in black. It is disconcerting. I'm like, this is
Yeah,
so weird. It feels like a Dr. Seuss kind of land,
yeah,
or like, is everybody in private school? Like, why is everybody
exactly.
dressed exactly the same? It's creepy. It gives me
Or
creepy dystopian vibes, you
like an
know?
episode, not being disrespectful or anything, but just thinking about it now, it's like something from Black Mirror. Like you're trapped.
Yes. That's exactly what it feels like. I mean, I'm sure it's totally normal if you're born and raised in Saudi or born and raised in Qatar, and then this is what you're used to. But if you come from like a multicultural, eclectic, country full of
Yeah.
different personalities and cultures, and then you go to this country where everybody, like all men are dressed in a white thobe and a ghutra, and all women are dressed head to toe, black abaya, black hijab, black niqab. It's weird. It is weird.
I mean, I was born in the country and I still thought it was weird. Like,
Okay.
I still thought it was shocking.
Yeah,
But, but again, because also inside Aramco, there was a bit of diversity. You could
right.
see people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities. So,
Yeah. So Aramco is like famous. It's like your little America in Saudi Arabia, I guess. Like that's where you would have your swimming pools and your restaurants
yeah,
and bars, and everything was super normal. Yeah.
yeah. So also, my sisters didn't have to cover their heads inside the compound. Like, it would be just the abaya, which is, uh, not as it is still bad because it's too hot in this country,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you're like covered in this black thing, but not as bad as it is outside the compound where they have to cover the whole thing, like their heads,
Yeah.
and they're covered from head to toe. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wearing black polyester in the desert where it can go up to like 50 degrees Celsius. Yeah, it's torture. So I found it interesting that you said you didn't realize that they hated Palestinian people that much, because that was my experience as well. So my mom is Egyptian and my dad is Palestinian. And I grew up in Canada where it was like my mosque and my Islamic school was full of people from all over, right? And
mm.
so when I went to Egypt was the first time my mom would say to me, "Don't tell anybody that your father is Palestinian." don't
Yeah.
admit it to anybody. And I was like, why not? And she's like, well, because people don't like Palestinians here and you're going to get treated badly. And I'm like, I'm in Canada. I'm in a white Western nation, and I never had that. And now I'm coming to like a neighboring Arab country, like your neighbors with Palestine. And this is where I have to be concerned about telling the truth about my ethnicity.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I stopped saying I was Palestinian. I always said I'm Jordanian, and
Yeah,
I'm not lying
typical.
by saying that because we've all had Jordanian passports, and looking into this whole region, my dad was born in Nablus when it was part of Jordan. So
Mm,
I have no idea why I had to even carry that burden.
yeah,
It doesn't make sense. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and it's really, other than the bigotry that they have, it really angers me how they have this idea that Palestinian people were just born to die for their cause, for their
yeah,
ideology. Like, why don't you go back to Palestine and die so that we can have Israel back? Like, why don't you go risk
mhm.
your life? Why don't you go give your life for my ideology, for my cause? That's how they think of Palestinian people. Whether you're in Saudi Arabia or whether
Pawns.
you're in California, no matter where you are in the world, Palestinian people get told this by other Arabs.
That's 100% true. We're like tools to them. We're
Yeah.
like, I don't think it's probably like not easy for the average Muslim to understand that there are peaceful Palestinians out there. And I don't think it's only Muslims, like even around the world, from my experience over like the past couple of years, they they think it doesn't make sense that you're not an anti-Semite. It doesn't make sense
Hmm.
that you don't want to kill someone. So yeah,
Yeah, it's all they see, it's all they know, it's all they hear. Those are the people that are celebrated, right? Those are the people that
mm,
get given the microphones. I mean, you saw even during the conflict, there was an Al Jazeera was speaking to a Palestinian man and he started being like, Yal'an Abu Hamas and whatever, like he started cursing Hamas.
yeah,
They pulled the microphone away. They don't want
of
that.
course, Al
You can't
Jazeera.
say that. You can't give your opinion. You have to only curse Israel and be, like to talk about Hamas as if they're your freedom fighters. They're not your freedom. Of course, it's not their
And this
freedom fighters.
and this woman is probably not alive now. She's
Yeah.
probably not there.
Yeah.
They're really scary, these guys. I will never understand how people with no connection to the region have been marching in their support and chanting their slogans. And when I saw that, I could not even comprehend it. Like it's beyond me.
It's
Because what do you
horrifying that
know?
there's people celebrating a group that are terrorizing your people, that are
Hmm.
terrorizing your family. And then you see people in the streets of London and Canada and America and Australia celebrating them. It's shocking. It's horrifying.
Yeah, yeah. And it's all because of this Soviet propaganda machine, or the Islamists and the Soviets. I don't know, I don't even get it. They came up with something that made people think that they are part of like a social justice movement, when in
Yeah.
reality they are marching with the bullies. Like they're making it worse for everyone.
Absolutely, 100%. And even now, the first thing Hamas did, as soon as the rats came out of the tunnels and put their uniforms back on again and found their guns again, what's the first thing they did? Go and kill all the Palestinian people that ever said a word against them.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, these are the resistance. These are the freedom fighters. And even with
But
those videos, people still, it doesn't make them think.
that's not just Hamas. That's, I think, every Islamist group that
Yes, you're
took
right.
control in the Middle East. they've all been like that in
You're
Iran
absolutely
and
correct.
Syria.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. So what was your journey? How did none of this was all of this like Palestinian conflict, all of that stuff? Was it your own sexuality? What was it that encouraged you, to start thinking that maybe you didn't want to be a Muslim anymore? I mean, I know you had that friend in university who was very brave.
Yeah,
And I think it's a
yeah.
really big deal when somebody shares that with you because then you realize, like, that's possible. I didn't know we could do that. So when somebody tells you they did it, it's like now you can do it too, you know? So that's really great that they did that. And that has a lot to do with why I speak out, because I feel like you cannot be what you cannot see. If we let people know that we exist,
Hmm.
then it encourages all these people that are really very uncomfortable with it all to go, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna do it too. Why do I have to live so inauthentically? But what was it for you that caused you to ignite this thought process that you wanted to leave us now?
Okay, so I was just your average Muslim, but I was not practicing. Like, I did not do the five prayers. I don't think I've ever done the five prayers because, at school we had to do that, the noon, dhuhr. So we had to do that. At, at home, my parents didn't really care. So why would kids full of energy and
Yeah.
life would subject themselves to this? I mean, so but I believed it. I believed the whole thing. Especially when I was 18 and 19, that was the time when I started, I developed this understanding of what God was about and what Muhammad wanted. It was, it was probably, I would say that was the worst time of my life because of like the relationship I had with my own sister. Like I became the jailer. I started checking who is she talking to? Like, are you at home? And it's not like I wanted to do that. This is
It's your
what
role.
society, yeah.
Mhm.
You suddenly you're not a brother, you're a male guardian, and you didn't choose that. It wasn't your choice, and it was thrown at you by your own parents and by society and by your family. Like it's just insane. Uh, yeah, when I went to university, one of my school friends actually, he wasn't at my university. We went to school together. So he decided uh, to, like, he just invited me to go on the MSN Messenger. Back then, it was 2002. So 2001, I think. Yeah. So I went to that internet cafe, logged in, and the first thing he said, listen, I'm going to tell you one thing, but I might lose you. I'm telling you from now. And I said, ah, oh, don't worry, nothing. Because, I thought that nothing was going to actually uh, shook me about like that guy. We used to talk about and laugh about lots of things, even as Muslims. And then he said, okay, he told me I'm an atheist. And my English wasn't brilliant back then. So I asked, atheist, what the hell is an atheist? So I had to look it up to see what he meant. And when I saw the word mulhid, and you know how terrifying this word is in Arabic,
Yeah.
I was horrified. I told him, and then he told me that he was crying. And then I told him, listen, when I come back to Saudi, I'm definitely going to put you back on the right track. Imagine that's me telling him.
Yeah.
I'm, because as a Muslim, you think, oh my God, your best friend is going to hell, and that's all I was thinking about. So, and there was nothing in my head. I didn't have any like information or any context on why would someone leave the religion. Like I didn't know there were alternatives. So
Hmm.
yeah, so what happened is I started asking him questions, and he sent me. Uh, some links about the Arab atheist forums, and it was all like that was the start of the internet, so nothing fancy. But there were some forums where people would ask questions, and then you get answers from random people. And some, what was it, about the theory of evolution, which I'd never heard of. I was 21 and I had never heard of the theory of evolution in my life. So I went back home and I had two friends who were staying at my flat. And the first thing is, when I saw them, I told them, well, my best friend just told me that he's an atheist. And they immediately said, "Oh, you don't need this guy in your life. You have to disregard him. Your faith is not that powerful anyway. He's going to drag you to your side." And I was, I was taken aback. I thought, "Are you guys for real? This is my friend. Like we went to school together. We'd known each other for 7 or 8 years." So they said, "No, well, this is my advice. If you ask any mufti," they said, if you as if I would just like go and ask him. Yeah, so I went to my bedroom and I was reading on my phone some of the questions and all that. And it was like the pattern I noticed when Muslims are asked questions about Islam, they always get wound up. They always get angry when they are
Mhm.
responding, and they call you atheist, dirty infidel, and all that. And these are legit questions. They are like questions about Aisha and Muhammad, people want to
Mhm.
know, like, how are you okay with this? So if uh I didn't see any solid arguments from the Islamic side. And I knew I had lots of questions myself, lots of unanswered questions. And then the next thing was the theory of evolution. When I wanted to know what is that? What's And the more you start reading about this, the more it starts making sense. Because even if it's not 100% like clear, or it is still way, way more reasonable than, just like
Mud.
shaping that human with some mud and like, and then, but that wasn't the main reason when I started reading about the theory of evolution. I think what ignited something in me was the fact that they kept us in the dark about it. Like 12 years in school, and they didn't mention it once. Like, at least just tell us, by the way, the infidels, they think, and just say, this is what the infidels think. They didn't say that. It was not mentioned once. So, yeah, I realized they were hiding it because it's true. So it took me a couple of sleepless nights. And it's funny because it wasn't even a week before I got back in touch with my friend. We went to the MSN Messenger, we started chatting, and I told him, I think you might be right, actually. And he couldn't believe it. Because, he thought, what he might lose me, or it might take me years, because I was already 21. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, it was pretty emotional, and I could not. It was shocking. It was traumatic because everything you were taught was a lie. It was based on a lie. Your relationship with people, everything, your understanding of the world around you, it was all just a bunch of lies. So you had to start figuring things out again. Like, these two words, subhanallah. Why we used to say that when we see something, and it would just shut down our critical thinking or
Mhm.
any attempt of analyzing what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this is how we end up stuck in the dark ages. So, so like if you think of because I'm a bird enthusiast. I like birds a lot. I traveled from Qatar with my parrots. I brought two parrots with me. So
Mm.
like there's this cuckoo bird that who's like basically a parasite.
the mother would lay an egg in a different bird's nest, like the reed warbler. And then the chick, once it hatches, it knows to push all the other eggs out of the nest, and it just takes over the whole nest. So then you end up with a chick which is like is not the actual chick of the parent, and they are feeding that little bird that keeps getting much bigger. It's bigger than the parent, and they are confused, like they're feeding that bird. When I was a Muslim, I would just say subhanallah to that. But if you think about it, why would God want a bird to be that sneaky? And but if you think about it now from like a scientific perspective and all that, well, you don't have to understand exactly why they're doing it, but you just have to know that this is a sneaky bastard. This is not a good bird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, it makes the world so much more fascinating and mysterious and interesting. Like there's so much more to it. Life was so small and
Yeah.
meaningless, and there was
No.
no intrigue, there was no mystery, there was no joy because first of all, it's dunya and it doesn't matter. This world is nothing. But then also exactly like you said, it just shuts down. Like you're going to look up at the stars and you're not going to wonder, anything about these, planets and supernovas and the sun and wondering, you're not going to have any kind of interest. Like, are there other creatures living on other planets? Are we ever going to communicate with them? You're not going to have these thoughts. You're just
Mm.
going to think, subhanallah. Like, that's it. Like I just couldn't believe how much my world expanded, my mind expanded. But you're absolutely correct. It comes in unison with feeling traumatized, feeling so scared. Like it was terrifying. It was lonely. It was very isolating. I'm glad you had your best friend with you. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But if you're doing this, if you're coming to these conclusions on your own, you can't even talk to anybody because everybody in your life is going to treat you like a pariah. That's if they even, it could be so many horrible things happen. Family members start to think you're possessed by the devil, and that's why you don't believe in Allah anymore. And like they could do all of these atrocious things. You could end up getting honor violence, honor killing, the list is long, right? So you keep your mouth shut, and then you're doing all of this all by yourself in your own head. And as you said, it's like did you watch the movie The Truman Show?
The Truman Show. I think I've heard of it, but I haven't
It's
seen
an
it yet.
old movie. It's an old movie with Jim Carrey. I want you to watch it. It is basically, I don't want to give the movie away too much, but there's a moment in The Truman Show where he just realizes like everything is a lie. Everything I've ever known since the day I was born, anything I've ever believed is a lie. And I related so much to that. Like that's exactly how it felt for me too. Like where do we go now? Where do we begin? Not only your relationship with other people and everything, your relationship with yourself. You don't even know who you are. Because
100.
everything I believed and I thought it was my thoughts, but it wasn't my thoughts. It was my indoctrination. It's what I was told to believe and what I was told to think and who I was told to hate. These
Yeah,
weren't my choices.
none of that was our choices. Yeah, it's all just forced on us. And yeah, I tried to when I went to the West Bank, because my dad eventually moved back to the West Bank, and I tried to talk to my younger sister, who uh, I had this weird relationship with when I was a Muslim, with like no mobile phones, no going out after school, no doing that, this. You know, I was trying to protect her, and at the same time, I went to school with the kind of guys that she might end up like seeing or chatting to. I know how they think. I know how they look at women. So when I told her that this whole religion is just you have to think of it as a fairy tale, and we were duped and all that, believe it or not, she thought that I was tripping. She did not
Yeah.
say it, and I thought, I don't want to take it away from her because if she doesn't want to believe me, but it's worth talking to people. It's like all my family members, they know that I don't believe in God. Uh, I just think that it's good to let them know that this is an option, like you mentioned,
Mhm.
because otherwise they think, that's the norm. Yeah, everyone should. I don't think it's, to be honest, we're not lucky with the ideology itself. Like, I don't think I would have issues if I were with if I were born in one of these religions uh, that doesn't want to spread and colonize or doesn't want to radically change your.
Proselytize.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We were born in the worst one for that. Right. All they want to do is colonize and convert, and whether it's going to be done in a very, you know, overt way, like with just, raping and pillaging and forcing people to convert or be killed, or whether it's done in more like covert ways, like with Islamists getting into politics and education, and
Hmm.
like in a
Yeah.
few in a week we have No Hijab Day, which is a very popular day for going around and encouraging women to wear hijab. It's these are the kinds of the stealthy dawah that they do in the
Yeah.
West. So yeah, they never stop. They're very, very focused on spreading Islam until everybody in the world is a Muslim, and this whole world is a caliphate. That's the goal.
Yeah, but the thing is, they need to understand that this is not going to happen, and the the worry about it is that, they end up resorting to violence when they see that they are being ignored by the vast majority. We see it time and time again. It's in their blood.
Yeah. I grew up in that mindset, and they really do believe they will be successful. There's not a doubt in their mind that they will be successful. And anytime you see a politician putting a hijab on, or you see a hijab on the cartoon that you're watching, or on a TV advertisement, or anytime you see these people, these white liberal overprivileged kids wearing a keffiyeh and screaming about Yahya Sinwar, and they see all of these things all the time, are just constant affirmations for them, constant proof showing that they are winning, and they just don't pay attention to the other parts. They just focus on, we are winning, we are winners, look at how successful we are. We just need to get back into
It's
Spain. That's always the hope, right? To
it's
keep on spreading into
all
Europe again.
I think they wouldn't be able to do anything without the help, like, of the left. I feel like without the left, they would just feel that the world is turning against them. But unfortunately, now we've got this weird alliance between the two, and this is always like a disaster when these two work together. I just find it interesting because there is nothing that Islamists want to achieve that is aligned with what the average leftist is expecting from life. So
Yeah.
I don't know, weird times.
Yeah,
But
it
we've been
is.
there. We've been there. It's not the first time, is it? Like that.
Exactly. Yeah, they've done this all throughout the Middle East, right? That's how the Islamic regime of Iran got into power, was through playing this same game. That's what they do. And it always comes as like anti-West, pro-Islam. It's like this combo of the two that are just completely intertwined. And
Yeah.
so they love the anti-West part, and so they join, and so they think that they're allied together. But as history has shown, these leftists just get thrown away once they're not useful anymore.
Well, the sad part is that some of my ex-Muslim friends from Saudi, they left Islam to actually join this ideology, this weird, I
Yeah.
don't know what to call it, to be honest, the woke left. They
Mhm.
became exactly the same kind of people that you see in the West. They don't want me to talk about Islam. They don't want me to criticize because it's whipping up Islamophobia. And like, you're telling me this is whipping up Islamophobia. You've never even said a word about the grooming gangs, the stabbers, the suicide bombers. They don't talk about these. So these guys
Mhm.
are not whipping up hatred, and
Mm.
me calling out dangerous teachings in Islam are going to cause hatred. I don't think so. So yeah,
Yep. You're 100% correct. I completely agree with you. Like you should be concerned about those people giving Muslims a bad name. You
yeah,
should, that's what makes people scared of Islam, is your trucks of peace running people over in, in Christmas markets or in Ariana Grande concerts or killing journalists over cartoons in Denmark or cartoonists in France. Like these are the people you should be concerned about. Not people like you and me who are literally traumatized by this religion, who are just trying to speak our personal
yeah.
experiences on a social media platform. Like we're not the scary ones. People
And
aren't going to
we're
be like,
speaking.
yeah,
Sorry. I
no, go
just got
ahead.
excited there. We're speaking because we didn't have anyone to speak up for us when we were in it.
100%.
So
Yeah.
we know the struggle, and we know that there are people now who are struggling just exactly the same. They're living the same experience we had. No one is there. No one is there to talk to. So it's really isolating, actually. It's really dark to to be born into this ideology.
100%. It's so isolating, it's so dark, and then you finally get yourself free, and then you look to the other free thinkers who supposedly believe in free expression and freedom of speech and secularism and all this stuff, and they're the ones who are turning against you. So you've got like the mullahs on one side, and then you've got these useful idiots on the other side, and it's like, what did we do other than just, you know, use our brains and choose freedom for ourselves and choose to love ourselves rather than to stay in an ideology that encourages us to hate ourselves and to,
To hate
just be
everyone else.
fodder. Yeah, and to hate everyone around us. Exactly. And that's
Yeah,
our crime.
yeah, it's it's a tricky one. I sometimes I wonder how how we got here to begin with. Because if you think about it, like if a group of people get arrive in a civilized society and they come with an ideology which you cannot leave, you get killed if you leave.
Hmm.
I don't understand how this civilized free society end up embracing it and telling them, okay, we're going to put some rules as well to protect that ideology so no one can criticize it
Yeah, yeah. It
instead
should be
of
easy.
yeah, like we're telling you that you get killed if you left. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, very frustrating. Like, what more do you need to hear? Shouldn't that be the end of the discussion? Like that it should be pretty easy for you to figure it out at that point. I also wanted to talk to you about how homosexuals are treated in Islam, because this is another thing with the alignment of the left, the anti West and the pro-Islam. This is a part of that combo that I feel should be another easy one. Just like if you say these people should be killed for renouncing their religion, okay, well, that's not good. Let's criticize that. Let's be against that, obviously. Same thing. If you're a homosexual, you should be killed. Well, that's not good. Like it should be easy. This should not be a point of there's no moral ambiguity here. Um, so talk to me about what it was like for you to like when you realized that you were gay. Had you heard a lot of sort of hateful rhetoric from Islam or from your Muslim friends and family? Because there is a lot of like homophobia, to put it very lightly,
Oh,
but
it was
there's, yeah, it's very ugly and vicious. I feel like the word homophobia doesn't even, it's not good enough.
it's horrific. Like you hear it not just in school, not when you're like outside in public places with your own family. It's just like the whole society is conditioned to hate. Sometimes I used to think, if they could just channel that hate they have for homosexuals to pedophiles, these countries would be like, honestly, a utopia because
Yep.
pedophiles were everywhere. Like they would be waiting outside our schools. Some of the teachers were pedophiles. They were inside the mosques everywhere. So why are these okay when and you have problems with two adults loving each other because they're the same gender? Just
Oh my God. Fadi, that's so beautifully put. I am so glad that you came up with that, making that equation there, because that is exactly it. That is hitting the nail on the head. I mean, Iraq just reduced the age of marriage from 18 to 9. It's
yeah,
not the reason why pedophilia is everywhere is because it's not just normalized, it's encouraged because it's sunnah. This is what the prophet did.
yeah,
It's celebrated. It's just completely, they don't recognize it. They don't see it as pedophilia. They don't even see it as a danger. They don't even see it as an evil. They say, "Oh no,
absolutely.
she's a grown woman." And it's such a problem. Child
Right.
marriages and the basically the sex slavery of these young girls. And some of them they die from the damage that's done to them by these old men, right?
Mm.
And nobody talks about that. Nobody wants to
No.
hate on those guys. Nobody wants to talk about throwing them from the highest rooftop. Nobody wants to talk about executing them in a dozen Muslim majority countries. Homosexuals, in their laws, it says
Yeah.
that they should be executed. But do they say a word about pedophiles? Absolutely not. In fact, it's perfectly legal. And if it's not legal, we'll change the laws to make it legal.
Yeah, yeah, that's the irony of it because when I used to have these discussions and debates on Twitter back when it used to be called that, uh, people would say like when I argue that homosexuality is normal and it doesn't only happen amongst humans, you find it amongst other animals. Some of the Saudis would say, "What's next? Shall we also legalize pedophilia?" I just said, even
It already is.
like, do you know anything about your own religion? Like, sorry.
Wow. Ugh. I mean, we
Yeah,
shouldn't be laughing, but this is it. You get to a point where you screamed so much and you cried so much and you got frustrated so much that there's nothing left to do but just cry at the audacity of it, at the ridiculousness of it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
so
And some
sad.
of the apologists, I'm pretty sure you heard this argument when they say, yeah, the girls used to hit puberty a bit earlier than now." Okay,
Yeah.
well, if that's the case, when Aisha got married, like, she was married off to Muhammad when she was 6. You can like I could just have a look at all the hadiths of the Prophet or the verses of the Quran. You will never find one hadith about Aisha actually consent, like saying that
Hmm.
she's okay with it. Like she never said, "Oh, yeah, I want to get married." It was basically her mom just called her in. She was playing with her friends outside, and she didn't tell her anything, but she had to sit inside. And then suddenly she's married to
Yeah.
Muhammad, and she had to go with him.
Yeah.
But this argument that, no, and why is it only puberty that you have to wait for? Like, what about like
Mhm.
mental development? Like, it
Well,
just,
yeah. And another irony there too is they say, oh, yeah, she's an adult when she's 9 years old. But Muslim women are never treated as adults. They are
100.
perpetual dependents. Yeah, you treat adult women as children, you know? So it's just everything is according to whatever, you know, demonic messed up goals that they have.
You are an adult when it comes to marriage, but you will always be a minor or a child or everything else. Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
when it comes to, for example, inheritance, when it comes to being a witness in a court, you're not an adult. That's how
Hmm.
it is.
Yeah. You're not only not an adult, you're half a human. And yeah, so when it's just control. It's just how can we control girls, right? We can
Yeah,
take them when they're little girls. This thing about they are adults, this is just bullshit that they say for the West too, right? Like, oh yeah, she's an adult, she's ready for marriage. They don't care if she's ready for marriage or not. They will just obviously a 6-year old who was still playing with dolls and talking about, like you said, she was playing outside when her mother came and took her and said, it's time for you to get married. She didn't know what was going on. They know that she's not an adult. Stop pretending. Stop lying. You're lying to yourselves. And even at 9 years old, like, okay, now she's ready for marriage. What are you talking about? And they would never say a 9-year-old boy is ready for marriage. He's mature enough now. He's an adult. That would never happen. But
doesn't
somehow for a 9-year-old girl, it's completely different. Like there's some kind of
it's
different
barbaric.
species. Yeah, it's disgusting. It's just some way for them to make excuses for their pedophilia. It's some way for them to sanction it.
Yeah, well, luckily, like within my social circles back in Saudi, Jordan, and Palestine, not many people are actually pro minor marriage. Like this is not
Yeah.
as common as it may come across, like in the media or
In some areas, yeah,
yeah,
different areas, it's more common than in others. Like obviously in Yemen, it's very common. In Afghanistan, it's very common. In Iraq now, it's going to become even more common, you know. But this this thing of putting a girl in hijab at that age because she is now a sexual being, like this way that our girl's childhood is stolen from her, even if she's not married off, her childhood is still stolen from her because she gets treated as an adult at that age. Like now you have to cover yourself up because you are shameful and you're going to cause fitna, and these men are going to rape you against their will because you enticed them with your hair at 9 years old, right? So the whole thing is toxic. And even if there isn't a lot of child marriage going on, there's polygamy going on. Do you know what I mean? Like there's always there's wife beating going on. There's
hmm.
wife raping going on. Like there's so much there that if you don't have one piece of that equation, then okay, great, but there's still so many more. It's like FGM. People say, oh, FGM doesn't happen in my country. Well, that's great for you. Close to 90% of women in Egypt are suffered FGM. So it's like it completely depends on where you are in the Muslim world, but they will choose their own form of toxic, violent, vicious misogyny. But you'll
Yeah.
find it there. It will be there. It'll just be different flavors.
And this is exactly why uh, I might be wrong about that, but I never advocate for the LGBTQ plus rights in the Muslim world because I feel like we're way behind. And right now, if we could at least convince people in the Middle East that women are actual humans, we'd have achieved something. Because I think, if they look at women, half the society, the way they do, who am I to expect them accept me as a gay man, or yeah, it's a rough neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah, to put it mildly, yeah. So tell me about your, you're finding the love of your life, moving to the UK, having some haram dogs. I have a haram dog too.
Oh,
It's
they're the
one of
best.
the best parts of life,
Oh
like
yes.
just being just obviously there was a lot of trauma and a lot of turmoil and so much going on, but now you can love who you want to love. You can have a sweet little covered like a ball of fur that you can love. You can live your life how you want to live it authentically. And we've talked a little bit about the challenges of living in the UK and hearing all of this rhetoric of the people there not understanding what you understand. You've lived in Jordan, you've lived in Saudi, you've lived in Qatar. Like these people wouldn't even be able to find those countries on a map, but they're
Yeah.
so confident to pontificate, with full chests about something that they know nothing about. And talk to me a little bit about how it feels living in the UK now and kind of navigating the two cultures.
When I first got here in 2016, it didn't take me long to realize that people are not really interested in uh, stories about the oppression in the Muslim world. It's an uncomfortable topic in the UK. Anything to do with Islam, it's best to just like brush it off and not talk about it because, Islamophobia and everything. So, yeah, I had a few like conversations with several people at the start, and when I found out that people are not really comfortable, I thought, maybe I should join. I actually was duped as well into it. I thought maybe I'm an Islamophobe. Imagine like
No.
someone who actually went through all this horror. And I'm sorry, my voice is just because I'm
Yeah, I
still,
know.
yeah.
Me too. I was just sick. I know that's horrible. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for coming and doing this, even though you're still getting
Oh,
over it. I appreciate
I
it.
wasn't gonna miss it or anything, of course. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they mean well. Like especially my partner's family, they're really some of the nicest people ever. But because I come from a very dysfunctional family, and I had my my share of traumas just growing up with the people I trusted and everything. It was very difficult to open up when I came here. So uh, I visited them a couple of times. We did have drinks and dinners together, but it always felt like I was trying to stay away to be one step away because I was worried. I don't know how to explain it. It's just probably
Yeah.
like defense mechanism
Yeah.
to what I've been through. The idea of a family terrifies me now. I don't know. This is where I am. So
Yeah.
uh, I I ended up making friends in London from different countries because I worked at one of these big corporates. I worked at Snapchat for 5 years. So and I realized every like single country in Europe, including the UK, they're all not interested in talking about Islam, and they are actually really terrified about anything to do with this religion. What I found really fascinating is that in our office, they used to joke about Arabs, like, and nothing would offend me. I mean, I survived Saudi, but when they start telling you jokes about Arabs, I thought, okay, but isn't that racist? But when I say something about Muslims,
Hmm.
everyone is really uncomfortable. How is that worse than actually joking about Arabs? There's nothing I can do about my ethnicity, but But when it comes to
Exactly.
ideology, people are uncomfortable. Come on, come on now. So it was
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, there were lots of differences uh, that I had to navigate. But yeah, it's a much better place. People are way more relaxed. Uh, yeah, unless you are surrounded by the ideologues, pe the ones who are literally in tribes, uh, not tribes, in cults. You are actually like gonna have a good time because people are listening. And not until that October 7 happened, and then I realized how wrong I was because unfortunately, hello?
Yeah, no, I hear you. October 7th.
Yeah, when October 7th happened, and I saw the next few days, people were all on the side of, like, they were sending me messages, some of the people I worked with. I hope your family is okay, which is sweet and nice of you. But how do you think that I am how do you think my family are the ones you should be checking on? Because, if you saw some of the videos that came out of October 7th, the Jews were being set on fire, they were being raped, they were being butchered. So it's not me you should be sympathizing with. But then I saw the people marching for supporting Hamas and all the anti-Israel demonstrations. I could not get it. At that time, I'd already deactivated my Instagram. I deactivated my Instagram in 2021 because it was driving me mad. But then when I saw that, I couldn't stay quiet because I saw that every single person I knew, Europeans, British, and all that, they suddenly joined this cult, this anti-Israel cult, and they had strong views on Instagram. I reactivated my account and I didn't shut up. I just started
Mm.
sharing one story after another. My profile is still private, obviously, because I work here and I don't want to. But I saw how people were really, it was like a frenzy.
Yeah.
And as soon as they see you expressing any pro-Israel views, they think that you are with the oppressor. The
Mhm.
oppressor. You should identify with people who are going to like a music festival, to people who are enjoying themselves, enjoying life, celebrating themselves, not the ones who went there, tried to kill literally everyone uh, based on their ethnicity. They were not even looking for soldiers. They were not after armed people. So yeah, that was a letdown, to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking. I really did think, as soon as I saw the images coming out on October 7th, I thought, well, this is it now. Now everybody's going to understand. Now everybody's going to get it. Now there's not going to be any more confusion. Now it's going to be very clear what's going on. Like you said, one side are in a music festival, which is, the theme of the music festival was for peace,
Or
which
peace.
is why it was on the Gaza border. And then the other side are coming in, raping, murdering, setting on fire, kidnapping, torturing. There's no question now. Everybody's going to see what's happening. But
And the
wow.
world sided with these guys. I
Yeah.
just don't get it because I don't think, like me as a Palestinian, I'm it's like sickening because I thought the world would start just be more concerned. They would just wake up and think, oh, we've been duped then. We thought that you guys were the victims. And then,
Mhm.
maybe we would start encouraging the Palestinians to embrace modernity and to become a
Mhm.
little bit more civilized. But that wasn't the narrative. That was because they were ready with their propaganda. Like, I think they prepared most of it.
Immediate.
Yes,
Yeah.
it immediately went out on October 7th. And And they were proud with their videos, the videos they recorded, which were like really barbaric. Uh,
Yeah.
someone would see a video like this. This is all you need to see to understand which side to take. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're proud of their activities. That's why they had those GoPro cameras. They wanted it's psychological warfare as well, right? So that's why I thought it was a really smart move. I was conflicted, and I'm sure the Israelis were conflicted too, because you don't want those images out in the world. You don't want them to be causing psychological warfare and trauma and, PTSD in people. But at the same time, that there's going to be deniers. It doesn't matter how much evidence we have of the Holocaust, there's still Holocaust deniers. And so when this happened, it was like this double-edged sword, but I thought, the images we saw were more than enough. The images of the women being dragged by their hair, shoved in vehicles, the images of women being tangled up in a broken mess on the back of trucks as these men are spitting on her and running after the vehicle like a bunch of rabid dogs. That's enough. You don't
yeah,
need to see more than that to understand what's going on here. You've seen enough. But
yeah,
it wasn't enough.
but we're talking about people who have been conditioned to disregard anything that comes out of Israel as a lie. And I'm one of the people who actually lived my entire life like that because this is the Islamist propaganda machine. They will present like Israel is the devil. Anything that comes out of Israel is either lie, fabrication. And we little did I know, like I was actually living, I could have been even living on a different planet because that's all the Islamists do. They just lie and there's
Yeah.
nothing about reality. So yeah, when I started reaching out to the Jewish community, talking to them believe it or not, I didn't even know what Shabbat Shalom meant until a year and a half ago. I've never even heard it because, the Jewish community, they're not like Muslims. They're not trying to
Yeah.
proselytize. So yeah, I was shocked that I never even heard. I did hear some Hebrew songs before, but nothing about the country itself, nothing about the society, the different backgrounds, the
Hmm.
fact that there was 2 million Arabs living in Israel. I had no idea,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and I bet most people in Jordan and in Saudi they don't know
Hmm.
that 2 million Arabs live in Israel because this is not, it doesn't align with the Islamist narrative to say there are
Yeah.
some Muslims and Arabs. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And in every level of the country, like all the way up to like they have their own Islamist governments even. So this is the exact opposite of what happens even in Arab Muslim countries. Like I had a man on my podcast, a Palestinian man who grew up in Lebanon, where he was restricted because he's Palestinian and he's not Lebanese. There's certain jobs that he's not allowed to even do. So he did his education to become an engineer, knowing that he was never even going to be able to practice it. Like that's a true apartheid. And when you're an Arab living in Israel, you are a full citizen just like everybody else. But no, they don't want to talk about that. They want to, of course, just push the propaganda. And Israelis really did not push back enough. They are now, definitely, but now it's like after the propaganda, after all these years. But it was
yeah,
like this thing of like billions of dollars are coming in from Qatar and from Iran, and they were really spreading their ideology, spreading their lies with the BDS movement and the Muslim student associations and all the ISNA and CARE and all of these Islamist organizations. They were just like working hard every day, churning out the propaganda, making sure that everybody, every year there's Al-Quds rallies and they're in the streets and they're screaming about Khaybar, Khaybar and, calling for the genocide of Jews. And it was like this machine that was just churning, 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 churning. And
Mm.
Israelis are just living their lives, you know? They're just like winning Nobel Prizes. They're just like creating technology. They're just like, they're continuing to just progress as a society.
Value,
But they
they
weren't
value.
busy with propaganda. Yeah, they weren't busy with pushing back against it. And so that's why on October 7th, it was like one side worked so hard to fill these minds with their bullshit. And now we're coming late to the game when we're like, what are you talking about, colonizers? What are you talking about, apartheid? All of this is lies, you know? But they've already, they're so much further ahead of us in this race.
Yeah, they value life. That's a significant difference.
That's the exact opposite, isn't it? We just talked about how we grew up thinking life is meaningless.
100%, yeah. Yeah.
And in fact, they celebrate death because you're a shaheed and you're going to go to heaven now. There was an imam in America that was talking about try and kill Jews because it's a win-win situation. If you kill them, that's great. One less Jew in the world. And if you die in the process, it's okay because you're going to be a shaheed and you're going to go to heaven and you're going to get your 72 virgins. So
Mm.
win-win. Just try, So this is how they view their lives, as something disposable. And it's exactly the opposite of how Jewish people value life, every life, even the lives of their enemies. Even they would spend their time and energy and money operating on Yahya Sinwar when he was a prisoner in Israeli prisons because of his brain cancer. And they saved his life for him to become the evil mind behind October 7th. But this is the shocking, vast difference. And when you go to Israel, it just hits you like a ton of bricks. There's no way that you can't recognize just the dichotomy of how one side values life and the other side values death. And it just makes you feel like, how is this ever, it's like you've got two completely different beings with two completely different mindsets. And, how are you ever gonna,
I
I don't know how this is ever gonna work. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, how are you gonna win against a kamikaze who's willing to just kill himself and kill his children how do you do that when all you want to do, all you care about life, you care, like Golda Meir said, when the Arabs start to care about their children when they start to love their children more than they hate Jews, then we'll see peace. And every time I read, it breaks my heart because I know that day will never come. At least it will never come in my lifetime. But I hope it does. I really hope it does. But it's just we're nowhere near it right now.
100%. And I think, you and I understand this threat that Israel is dealing with because we can see
It's a
things from
threat to us
both
too.
perspectives. Yeah. Like Israel represents every minority in like the Islamic world, I feel. Because, well, luckily they've been successful in fighting back our bully. And I hope that they continue to win this war. And I know it's not easy. I know there will be a lot of human loss, and let's hope it doesn't like carry on like that for a very long time.
Yeah, I really hope so too. But who knows? But it has to end. Like, it's just enough. And I think that the rest of the Arab world, luckily, now they're starting to really realize enough. Like, they're not coming in with their coalitions like they used to before. Now staying out of it, or like when Iran was attacking Israel, you had Jordan and Saudi Arabia protecting Israel. So it's like they don't have the support of the Arab world that they did before. Now people just want to live. They're thinking about, how relationships with Israel means it's financially viable. They want peace for their people. They are fine to use Palestinians as fodder for their own war, but they're not going to go and risk their lives. They're not going to go and risk the lives of their people. But so that's at least that's good news, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, Fadi, I know you're not feeling too well, but you've got a lot of people here that have got their hands up. So, how about we take a few questions and then you let me know if you're starting to feel like
I'm okay.
not too
I'll
great.
do my best. I'll do my
Okay.
best.
All right. So you give me a time that you feel like we got to shut it down because we've got a lot of questions here. We'll probably go on for a long time. Should I say like 20 minutes more, half an hour more?
I'm free. Like it's fine. I can answer as
Okay.
many.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So let's start with you, Leona. Thank you so much, Fadi. I appreciate it.
I do apologize. My voice is much better than that, I promise. But it's hopefully the end of it. It's been a week
Yeah,
and
mine
it's
lasted 2 weeks. All right, Leona, can you unmute yourself and go ahead and ask Fadi your question?
Is that working?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so firstly, thank you for all of the sharing you've done on Instagram. It's been really great to talk to you. You touched on this a little bit, but you'd said in the past that October 7th changed everything for you, and I'd be interested if you could elaborate on that.
So October 7th was the start of my journey in like understanding the region itself because my dad comes from the West Bank, and to me, I didn't like that place. I used to go there every summer holiday, but I didn't like it. I didn't like how, how the people lived. I didn't like the culture. I didn't. So I always like distanced myself from the region. When October 7th happened, I was still pro-Palestine, but I just wanted to understand more. I wanted to know why all this violence took place because I thought maybe there is something I didn't know. And the more I started reading about it, the more I realized that this isn't overland. It's just an ideological war. We've all been lied to. And all the secular people I know in the West Bank, they they woke up. They realized that they also have been lied to. So, because a lot of Palestinians in the West Bank have always thought it's our land, and we want to fight it. But October 7th, I think, opened a lot of people's eyes to the reality of how this is like an ideology that will not stop at annihilating the Jews. The Jews are going to be the first stop, and then it just will carry on and on. Christians, the gays, no one's going to be safe until it's like a massive, an international Islamic caliphate. So in that sense, I started to read more about Israel, which is a country I was groomed to hate. I started reading more and more and thought, yeah, everything I knew about Israel was just a bunch of lies. It was a propaganda. So then when I was arguing on Instagram, some Israelis started responding to my comments and they would follow me and I would follow back and we'd start chatting to each other. And I'm not saying it to score any brownie points here, but genuinely, it felt like I found my people because I used to talk about Islam way before I met or I reached out to the Jewish community. and people thought that I was blowing things out of proportion. The Jews get it because you've actually been dealing with it. So you understand that I'm not just a crazy man. I, I've been there and I've dealt with it. So yeah, well, thank you for that. I hope that
Yeah.
answers your question.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Great question. Great question and great response. Thank you, Fadi. Yeah. I felt the same way about feeling like, yeah, you get it. You're not shutting me up. You're listening to me. You're nodding as I'm talking instead of looking horrified. So it's
And most of them, they don't even want to be seen as you know, the confrontational or the racist. Like a lot of the Jewish community, they just want to live in peace. They don't hate their neighbors. But right now, we're living in a time where it's very difficult to actually pretend that you know there isn't a problem. There isn't an ideological problem. We can't even ignore it anymore because people are dying. So yeah,
no, 100%. Karen, you're next.
I know, Karen.
We
Hello.
can't hear you, Karen. Oh no. Well, she's sending you hearts anyway. Can you see?
We
We'll come
did.
back to you, Karen. Hopefully you'll get your sound working.
If you just unmute yourself, if you
She's
click on
unmuted.
ah,
She's not muted. All right, we'll come back to you, Karen. Hopefully there's someone there that can help you out.
Alex,
Sorry.
for you.
Oh, good. There is someone to help her out. Okay, great. We'll come back to you, Karen. In the meantime, Katya, you're next.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. And we don't see you
Uh,
though, but that's what maybe you want to keep your video off. It's up to you.
no, it's
Oh,
okay.
okay, there you go.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for this discussion. My question is, I mean, it needed a short story. I used to dance queer tango 10 years ago, so I got to know a lot of people from Europe, from France, from Germany, queer people who dance tango and so on. And now I see on Instagram a lot of anti-Jewish, anti-Israel stuff. And I mean, personally, I know that those are like nice people, they are kind people, they are like well-hearted people, but at the same time, they are like fully convinced that Israel is the only evil in the world. And I mean, at the same time, yesterday was a Holocaust Remembrance Day, and I saw a lot of shared information about those who survived from Holocaust. And now, for me, it's like they don't care about Jewish people. They don't care about those Holocaust survivors. It's just like they feel good about themselves. I don't know. They freed them. It's like these people like dead Jews, you know, those books. So my question is maybe also as a member of an LGBTQ plus community, and maybe like all those leftists in general, do you have any suggestions how to reach those people so that maybe they could to look at least at the situation from the different angle?
Yeah, I think you can hear me, right? Yeah. I unfortunately can see how the LGBTQ community got hijacked like many other communities. So the only thing we can do is by just like keep on just sharing facts about what's happening because people don't really know. Like, at my workplace, I don't think many people knew that, for example, that there were Arabs and Muslims in Israel. I explained a lot of things to them which they had no idea was the case. So the same with the queer community. I think they believe that Israel is an oppressor, and this comes from the fact that it's funded by the US. So it's seen as like an extension of Western colonialism in the Middle East, which is the complete opposite, by the way. But that's how they see it. And to change this picture, I think it's going to be a lot of work, but it's doable. I think we can get there if we just like share more facts and more like from what is going on. And I like what I see on Instagram sometimes when they show the propaganda on the top part of the video and then reality. The propaganda is what Hamas are doing, for example, and then the lower part is the reality of course, their actions. Yeah, I think my voice. Hello, Karen. Uh, I hope I answered your question there, or at least I tried.
I think my mic's working now.
Oh, it's
Okay.
working.
Perfect. You're up, Karen.
Yay! I'm sending you both all my love. You guys have really made the last year and a half bearable when it was hardly bearable. Anyhow, my question for you, Fadi, is how do you feel about the ceasefire? I'm just really curious because, the whole world's been screaming for ceasefire, ceasefire. Now we see Hamas, suddenly they're in their uniforms and they've got all this propaganda where they're looking like the good guys and handing the hostages their goodie bags. And then, on the back screens, you're seeing they're back murdering Gazans. So I'm just wondering what you think about the ceasefire. If you agree with the ceasefire, what do you think we should have done? If not that, I mean, we're kind of in a no-win situation, but I'm curious your perspective.
It's really hard for me to actually say for sure what I would have done because I'm talking to people who are ex-IDF members, and they sometimes tell me when you are on the ground, when you are in that battle, it's really, really difficult to actually make decisions regarding that, like the manipulation, the deception that they have to deal with on the Hamas side. But I will have to say one thing. Just seeing these hostages, the Israeli hostages being hugged by their families, and I just think, you couldn't put a price on that. And I know that terrorists are being released in exchange, but this is not the end of the war. And I don't think it's going to just stop here. I don't think a ceasefire doesn't mean that this is just, that's the deal and it's sorted. So I don't have a strong views on it, but I think, it's good that you are managing to get some of your hostages back, even if you had to pay a hell of a price.
Right.
It's not cheap.
What about the price the Palestinians are paying who didn't agree with Hamas? And now I feel like we've kind of fed them to the wolves because Hamas is murdering anybody who they think spoke out against them. So
the thing is, they were doing the same thing before the ceasefire anyway. Like these videos kept coming out of Gaza. So don't think, the ceasefire is what actually caused that.
They have been doing that for years. You're right, Fadi. Or anytime anybody would try to speak out against them, this is what they would do. They had the We Want to Live protests, Bidna Naish, and
Yeah.
people were being imprisoned, people were being tortured, and their families tortured as well. So this is just par for the course for them. This isn't Israel's responsibility or Israel's doing. This is what Hamas does. They are a terrorist organization. It's no
That's
different than the Islamic regime of Iran. It's no different than the Taliban. It's no different than ISIS. This is what they do. They torture people who do not fall in line with them.
they'll turn on you just like that. It's like, you might be fighting right next to someone and you disagree on one thing because they don't value life. So they'll have you killed. So yeah, a different breed, I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
How are you feeling, Fadi? I feel like you're not going to have a voice tomorrow. We're taking the last bit of voice you have left. You want
We
to
can
keep
have more,
going?
yeah, we can have more.
Okay. All right. Courtney, you're next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Um, Hello, Yasmine, and hello, Fadi. Nice to meet you. Um, I firstly just wanted to make a little comment about the ceasefire and how that's not going to be the end of things. I feel like the West is really focused on that, and I actually think we're not looking for solutions, and it's just very much a band-aid. So I feel like it's kind of it's an oxymoron, permanent ceasefire. Um, so anyway, my question was pretty much about the spread of Islamism in the UK. And Fadi, how do you feel about like, from an outside perspective, I'm in Australia. It very much looks like in the next 5 to 10 years, the UK could be a Muslim country under Sharia law. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like, as a queer man, you're going to continue to be safe in the UK? Yeah, pretty much just your thoughts on that.
Literally everyone I know in this country now is talking about that. Everyone is worried about the prospect of waking up to in an Islamic state. And I think, these are valid concerns, but I want to believe that people are going to fight back because especially with what's happening now with the grooming gangs, all these scandals that are coming out, and it's all because the Labour Party did not take any of these uh, complaints or any of these scandals seriously enough. We got to this. So I think, people are now really angry. Especially,
Mm.
I work with English people, and they are telling me your voice is very powerful. You can educate people about it, especially that you're born into it. So am I scared about like the Islamists? I don't think so because I know deep down that they are like nothing but a bunch of cowards. They
Mm.
fight in packs, and I think people have to keep that in mind. Uh, the Islamists can't do anything if the Western governments, are not enabling and supporting them. So that's what I want people to understand. Uh, are we going to be able to put an end to it? I'm not very positive about this one, to be honest. And I know in Australia it's not any better. So
No, it's not any better. And I think, like, just on that, I think what I think the fear is that, like in Iran, it's going to be too late by the time governments are like, oh no, like this is actually bad. So yeah, I can relate to that. I'm not feeling very positive about it in Australia. So
well, some of my colleagues who are Gen X and boomers, they told me that you are actually you don't know what sort of people will start coming out of their caves once they see that it's actually being turned like officially turned into an Islamic state. This is not going to be an easy fight. So that gave me a bit of hope, I would
mm.
say. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I it is a bit hopeful in that sense that I do feel like there's a lot of patriotic like English people and Australians that will come out, but I think it's not going to be pretty. So,
Yeah, yeah. I just don't think like anyone who means well, like I do have Muslim friends, and I know that a lot of Muslim people are just nice people. They don't want to spread the ideology or change. But I think anyone who wants to impose this ideology on a society which isn't Islamic, and I think these are evil. Like in the UAE, these would be in jail, and in Saudi as well. Imagine I'm talking about the cradle of Islam, they'd be thrown in jail. Like,
yeah,
but we are
yeah,
so, like the West is too tolerant.
agreed. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
It's tolerance, but it's also ignorance and it's also arrogance. So they don't
Yeah.
know what they're dealing with. They don't
How
understand the
how is
threat.
Hijab, this guy, Muhammad Hijab,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
how is he allowed to have like a platform and to speak? He was literally talking about young girls. If the girl is fat enough, he said, then she should just why not getting her married, marrying her off.
Like she's a fucking goat or something, a camel.
Mhm.
Yeah,
In what world is that okay?
yeah. Well, apparently in the United Kingdom. All right,
Yeah,
Debbie, you're next.
right. I'm gonna try
Um,
to at least let people understand what it's like, what this dystopia they're fighting for looks like, because I was born into it.
Yeah,
That's why.
that's right. Yeah. If
I-
they're willing to see the truth, truth is available for them. Like I said in my book, ignorance is now a choice in the age of the internet.
Mm.
Go ahead, Debbie.
well, just to comment on that, the problem is that people believe that they are seeing the truth. It's just not the truth. Yeah, in this age of choose your own truth, I suppose you could call it. This conversation has been both very gratifying in validating a lot of things that I see and understand, but at the same time, very depressing and horrifying. And I wanted to ask, I'm in Toronto, Canada. I think, is that where you are, Yasmine, in Toronto?
On the West Coast.
Oh, you're in the West Coast. So, and what I find is really particularly frightening here is that it is people with the power to make policies who are not understanding reality. And even you were talking a moment ago about the pictures of the release of the hostages with the scenes behind them of Hamas killing people who disagreed with them. I have not heard any allusion to that on any of our media, not on CBC, not on any of the papers here, nothing. I was shocked to hear it from you, and I consider myself quite informed and knowledgeable. But what I wanted to run by you is somebody said something interesting to me the other day, and they said they didn't understand this whole enshrinement of anti sort of Islamophobia legislation, for example, in our largest school board, the Toronto School Board, and in some of our city governments, because he was saying the word phobia by definition means an irrational fear. And to be afraid of Islamists and Islamism is not irrational. It's a very rational fear. And he thinks it's frustrating that people who are enshrining these anti-Islamophobia policies equally to anti-Black policy, Black racism, anti-Semitism. He said it's mind-boggling that there's that lack of understanding of what they're actually referring to. And I just wondered what your thoughts were about that.
I think, Islamism, I heard all this like discussion about Islamism and Islam and Islamists and Muslims. To be completely honest with you, it's like the distinction is something that is being made up. I'm not really I'm not on board about, making them sound like they are different things, because Islam as a religion, it's also political. It's a political ideology. So uh, when you believe in this religion, if you read the holy book and if you read the hadith, part of it is you want to also start spreading the message and you want to convert people. So if you end up just doing your own work and you believe in God and you become just a Muslim without the preaching part, then you're not doing it fully. You're not like a complete Muslim. So yeah, in like Islamophobia is nothing that would concern me. Like I don't consider even that something that I would worry about, because it's just a made up bullshit term. It's not something real. So
Well, yeah. I wasn't asking about being afraid of Islamophobia, but about the notion that Islamophobia, it's being used in policies to protect saying bad things about Muslims and Islam, but based on a misunderstanding that you should be afraid of Islam, because a phobia means an irrational fear. So to say Islamophobia doesn't make sense, because if you're afraid of it, it is a rational fear. It's not a phobia.
yes,
Right. That was my friend's comment, and it was a bit of a light bulb for me. So
we're saying the same thing here.
yeah.
Everybody, we say it all the time. Yeah, very much. Of course, we're afraid. You should be afraid. If an ideology is calling for your death, how would you not be afraid? And I think that's when you equated it like so many people do when they equate it with like anti-Black racism or anti-Semitism or whatever. It's not equal, because you're talking about an ideology. You're not talking about an ethnicity. So like Fadi was saying, when people say stuff about Arabs, that's problematic, because now you're being a racist, right? Like now you can't do anything about your ethnicity or who you are. But if you're going to criticize an ideology, go for it. Criticize it. Criticize it all you want. That's what we do. We criticize things in the West. How often are people on the political left are criticizing people on the political right? People on the political right are criticizing on the political left. You can criticize anything you want. Criticize Nazism, criticize communism, criticize Islamism or Islam. Criticize all of it. These are not protected groups of minority people. This is an ideology.
Yeah. It's not religion.
Feels as if it is a protected group these days, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's why I spoke in the House of Commons about M103, which was exactly making that distinction between people versus ideology. And thankfully, M103 didn't pass, which was our Islamophobia laws, for those of you who aren't from Canada. We do have an Islamophobia czar who was appointed by the federal government. But yeah, there's a very clear distinction between Muslim people who are just average, everyday, normal people who are not interested in spreading Islam, or not interested in violence, or are not interested in anything other than just living their lives. But the Islamists, who are the people who created this term Islamophobia in order to silence criticism so that they can continue their work unhindered, those are the people you need to be afraid of. And back to Fadi's point about how in Saudi Arabia, UAE, in Egypt, all over the Arab world, these people are considered terrorists. They are criminalized. They are terrorist organizations. But then here in the West, they get to proselytize freely, and that's the danger, is that you don't know what you're dealing with. If you continue to pretend that these ideological people are just the same as average Muslims, because they hide under that umbrella, right? They hide under the umbrella of religious freedom. This isn't a religion. This is not a faith. This is a political movement. And it is, I understand it's hard to differentiate between the two. It's hard to see the difference between the two, but being able to distinguish between the two is the difference between life and death. Really, that's the difference for you guys. That's how important it is in the West for you to understand the difference and to have a red line. This is why I like France, because they have a red line. They've got secularism. They're like, we give no fucks about anybody's religion. None of you are coming into the public sphere. None of you are coming into education. None of you are coming into government. And it's like beautiful. That's the only way to do it. As long as you've got Christian nationalists that are allowed to do this, that, and the other thing, you're gonna have your Muslims and your Islamists doing it as well. If you open the door, they will come through. So the only way is to just shut the door on all of this. And unfortunately, people don't want to do that. But it's the only thing. It has to be done.
Well, you should come and speak to the Toronto District School Board, Yasmine.
Oh my God. That's like the worst possible nightmare. But yeah, complete ideologues, right? Entirely indoctrinated. They're now talking about anti-Palestinian racism, which has already been adopted, I think, at a school board in Toronto. It's insanity. You know, we could talk about, I have another episode that's like fully on Canada because it is such a mess. But yeah, there's so much work to be done.
Thank you.
Sorry to just like jump in there. You're talking to Fadi and I just like became an interloper.
It's all important.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. All right. You're still good, Fadi? We got 3 more questions.
Yeah, good to go.
All right. Debbie, you are next.
No, I just went.
Oh, sorry. I'm losing my mind. Miriam, you are next.
I know Miriam. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
I don't know if I can turn on my video.
It's up to you. Would you like to?
Yeah, I think it says that I can't because the host stopped it, but
oh, okay. Hold on one second.
Okay. Voila. Hello.
There you go. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Yasmine. Hi, Fadi. It's wonderful to see you both and sending you so much love and appreciation.
Thank you.
Yeah, your voices are just so important and so healing, and I can't tell you how much you both mean to me. Fadi, I was wondering if you could share about your first interactions with Jews and with Israelis, and then in contrast, what do you wish that Muslims and Arabs knew about Jews, about Israelis now? Like if you could just give them a download for what you now know, what would your takeaway be for them?
So, okay, as someone who lived in the Middle East most of my life, I left when I was 30, by the way, 31. So, and now in the UK for 9 years, I can tell you that I can recognize the difference between programmed, brainwashed people and humans who can think for themselves. Now, when I started talking to Jewish people on mainly on Instagram, I felt like I was actually talking to people who are listening. We can have a conversation about things. They are not trying to push a narrative. They're listening to me. Most of them were concerned about my family in the West Bank. I didn't even get that from Muslims. I didn't get, because, we're just expected to be like cheap pawns to the Muslim world, to be fighting this ideological war on their behalf. It doesn't matter what happens to us. But when you are talking to humans who were raised to love, raised to value life, it is beautiful. You can just feel it in their words, and like their wishes. It's honestly like it's nothing like I've ever experienced in the Middle East. So your humanity is shining. It's like I don't know where it just felt like, for the first time from this region, it feels like you talk to people who can hear you at least, who can see you. And that is beautiful. So yeah, that's all I would like people to know about Israelis and Jews.
Thank you, Fadi.
Of course.
It is beautiful, Fadi. I completely agree with you. That was my experience as well. Tochi, you're next.
Hey Yasmine, hey Fadi. So Fadi, I grew up in Saudi, so the stuff you're saying, like I've been to Aramco and all that, so it's cool.
Oh, wow.
Brought me back. Yeah, man. It's a different world out there.
Third
And
Street,
sorry, what?
the Third Street, and the game rooms, and
The whole thing, man. Listen, what I think is really interesting is I didn't live in Dammam. I lived in Jeddah and a bunch of other places, but I went to Dammam to play basketball at one point. So it was kind of like, yeah, like I experienced that, like, whoa, this is like little America, and this like one, it was kind of mind blowing. So, my question to you actually is, we do hear about the peaceful Palestinians, and I've always found this to be somewhat of an amorphous term. So I'm curious to know, you know. What percentage would you say of peaceful Palestinians exist, whether in the Middle East and even abroad? And I just want to add very lastly, because having grown up in Saudi, my best friend in high school was Palestinian Arab. And I understand that burden. What you were talking about is so real because, you're growing up around Arab kids. And the burden is you're Palestinian, you're supposed to be out here fighting. Like you're
yeah.
carrying the the hatred of Jews. Like you guys are the cheap pawns, and it's 100% facts. I've seen it. So given that you're just raised in such an environment where the entire Arab world and of course the Jew haters from outside of the Arab world lump on, like, I mean, how many peaceful Palestinians are there really? And even when they go abroad, I feel like they don't shed that. It's just such a part of their
Yeah.
identity. You get what I'm saying? So I'm just
But
curious.
I think, I was let down by the Palestinians in the West because, I thought at least now you have the freedom. Like in the West Bank, I understand how hard, how difficult it can be. People that I talk to, they want a two-state solution. They don't want all this conflict to keep going. But the thing is, you cannot actually express these peaceful views publicly. And this is what makes this place so problematic. Like if you're peaceful, you can't express your views openly. But if you're one of the crazies, kill the Jews and all that, yeah, all the cameras will be at you. And that's what makes it very difficult to know how many peaceful Palestinians there are in the West Bank, because the peaceful ones are quiet. They're not going to risk their lives just being identified. Like even I tried to introduce some of the Israeli people I met to some of my relatives in the West Bank, and they told me, "Are you crazy?" And because I've been away from that region for a very long time, they told me that this would be a death sentence for us if we are caught talking to someone from Israel. That's how bad it is. So the ones in the West, I genuinely have no excuse for the ones who've been marching for Hamas, and these are not my people. And I don't know what sort of schools they went to. I don't know what sort of indoctrination or brainwashing they were subjected to, but they are way, way more radical than some people in the West Bank. Like, what is going on? There's something I'm not aware of. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Do you find, someone like yourself, do you find that there is a growing community of people, I'm talking about specifically Palestinians in the West, who are vocal Because I mean, I agree with you, and it's shocking to me because you are outside of the Middle East, so you are free to say what you really feel, and you don't have to suffer the consequences. But yet, truth be told, the few Palestinians that I've known over my life, and some of them did in fact move to the West. People I knew from Saudi who moved to the West, and they're even more radical. And I'm going, what the hell is going on? So is this just a thing that will always persist?
Part of
No.
it is the fact that they don't know what it's actually like to live there. They don't know what the Palestinian Authority is like. They don't know what sort of a hellhole people have to live in. Like, at the very start of the war in the West Bank, they were more pro-Hamas than actual Gazans because, they don't understand it. They just go by what they see on Al Jazeera. So when I ask anyone in the West Bank, so which channel do you watch the news on? It's Al Jazeera Arabic. So this channel is the main channel in any place. You know that the people are going to be really brainwashed and they have absolutely zero connection to reality.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I was going to say, sorry, I feel for y'all. I really do, because I think a lot of people can't visualize what even like a Palestinian looks like, or a Palestinian Arab family and things like that. So, just my experience, like my boy at the time in high school, he was like family. I mean, I knew his kids, or not, sorry, not his kids, but his parents and things like that. So, um, it's weird when you're around a whole bunch of Arab kids in high school, and and he's even complained to me in private, like they don't care about me. Like they look at me as a crash test, and they treat me, they just keep me to the side. But then when the second Intifada starts, it's like, oh, everyone's purchasing the kafia, and it's like it's weird. It'll mess with you.
Yeah, that's exactly my experience as well. Growing up with it. It's just,
It messes with us too. It's humiliating. It really is. Like I don't even, it's hard to continue to say Hamas is not Gaza, Gaza is not Hamas, when those images of them celebrating the terrorists that are being let out of prison, by seeing them the day of the ceasefire in the streets screaming Khaybar, Khaybar, which is a call for genocide of Jews. It's, seeing them the way, like I've mentioned before, running after the truck with Shani and Luke. It's hard. It's very difficult to continue to maintain that it is not one and the same, but you just, the images that come out are so repulsive and humiliating is really that's how I feel. I feel so disgusted that these are my people acting like this, acting like, I can't even say animals because it's an insult to animals. And that humiliation carries on when you visit Israel and you see how good they are. You see how they truly do want peace, and they truly do believe in the humanity of Palestinians, probably more than the Palestinians do themselves. That humiliation continues. Yeah.
I've seen videos, but I've never been to Israel. But it looks like nothing I've seen in the Middle East, obviously. But I agree with you, Yasmine. It was really shocking to see them celebrate death, but it's also not something that they haven't done before.
Yeah.
Like, when September 11 happened, when they were like giving like sweets to people in the street, it is part of the reason I could not, when my dad decided to take us back to Naples, I could not settle down there. I felt like something was off about people, but obviously I'm not going to tar the whole, like all Palestinians with the same brush, but in general, collectively, because they were like born and raised in this place, they are different from us. They are really different from the ones who grew up in Saudi. So it felt like they were praying most of the time, or like they were asking you questions very personal, and they're trying to get one over you. It's exhausting. So it never felt like they were united by a common goal. I never felt like that. It felt like the only thing uniting the people there is their hate for their hate for Israel. So I feel bad for the ones who are trapped, obviously, because my sisters are there. They're some of the nicest people you could ever talk to in this region, and they are confused. They have no idea like, they don't watch politics. They don't watch the news. They're not interested in all this conflict, but they're surrounded by these people who are constantly like chanting hateful slogans against, their neighbors. And so, yeah. And my sisters were not born in the West Bank. We were all like, we grew up in Saudi. So it's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, of course you feel sorry for people that are born and raised in hate and who that is like the main uniting thing of their entire existence. Of course you feel sorry for them. That's horrible. And they don't even know. It's like a fish doesn't know he's wet. It's not until they come out of that hate that they'll realize like, whew, I was carrying all of that in my body. I was carrying all of that in my mind. Like it's heavy, it's dirty, it's gross, but they don't know because it's all they've ever known.
But the thing is, Yasmin, from the little I know about the West Bank, a lot of Palestinians have been working in Israel. So they
Yeah.
have actually worked with Israelis. They know how, like, they're aware of their integrity and their honesty. So I feel like at least those, couldn't you just be like the voice of reason in the region? Just tell people about your experience. And, I have friends who worked in some of these settlements in Israel, and they said they have never seen anything like it. It's like they get treated with respect. They're paid on time. And this is not the case when you work under the PA. You know what it's like. Like,
Yeah.
people are not getting paid their full salaries, and it's been like that for now 2 years. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's
tragic.
just it takes a lot of bravery to do that because when you're in a society where where the uniting chorus is hate, if you are going to be the one to say, "Hey guys, they're actually really nice," they attack you. It's not a culture of critical thinking of people having counter narratives and everybody's ideas is valid and let's have a conversation. No. It's like this is the way, a sirat al-mustaqim, right? Everybody has to believe the same thing, speak the same way, act the same way, or you are ostracized or worse. And
Yeah.
so even though there's probably a lot of people who have the exact same perspective that you and I have, a lot of Ghazans that worked in Israel as well, but what are they going to do? It's like a tsunami of hate, and so they shut their mouth because they're only going to be attacked by their own. So it requires a lot of courage. And we can see that here in the West, even when there isn't the threat of, honor killings and honor violence or, terrorist organizations attacking you. Even here in the West, people are afraid to have that kind of courage to speak up, when they see something that is making absolutely no sense. The anti-Semitism that is just rampant and normalized. Even Jewish people will just like hide their Magen David, and you want to live, you want to exist, you want to survive. You have to make it through. So it's hard to put yourself out there. But unfortunately, there's really no other way. Like we just have to do it, just like little specks, little trickles, little flecks of light. And eventually the light will come through. Just drop your seeds. I really believe that you have to just continue to do that in little safe ways, and eventually those seeds will grow.
Isn't it shocking though how like anti-Semitism unites people on different
Yeah.
political spectrum? Like, you know, the mildest version would be, yeah, but they have a lot of power. You hear that a lot from Europeans and to say, well, the Jews have a lot of power. And I think, you know, that's punching up, right? It's like,
Mhm.
I'm pretty
And
sure
they're
if,
white. Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure if they were not successful enough, they would just say, well, they're a burden on every society. So
They'll
maybe,
find a reason.
yeah,
Schrodinger's Jew, right? It doesn't matter. They're going to hate them. They're going to hate them. They're going to hate them for not being white. They're going to hate them for being white. They're going to hate them for being successful. They're going to hate them for not being successful. I don't understand it. I grew up in the anti-Semitism of Islam, and that I understood because it's like doctrine, right? But I don't understand it in the West. It was shocking to me. I never expected to see it
you think it's
as,
rooted in Christianity as well.
but nobody's Christian.
Yeah,
Like
but you know,
Christians aren't acting like that. You know what I mean? Like most Christians are, nominal Christians.
I mean, I know some ex-Muslims who are still homophobic, and
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
so some of these things, unfortunately, are instilled at a very young age. So that's why I always say, when you leave an ideology, it's not enough to just say I don't believe in the basic the main story. Maybe you have to reevaluate your thoughts about different things.
Yeah.
Like, you know, how you view women, how you look at animals, because you know how animals are treated. And
Yeah.
I don't know, this is probably we've got some time for one last story about the dog I found in Palestine. So
Yeah.
when I was young, I was 13 that time. We used to spend every summer holiday in the West Bank. So I came across this terrified little black dog that was just darting up the hill, running away. And obviously, he had owners, but they were torturing him. I kept following him until he decided to like give up. And he curled up and looked up at me. He looked really terrified. So I just sat next to him, just wanted to reassure him. And when I was stroking him, it genuinely felt like he never experienced anything like that. So he just started just like trusting me more and more, and he just sat next to me. And anyway, I stupidly made a friend. I knew I was meant to leave because we were only staying there for 1 month. So after having cleaned the dog, spending the whole that whole time with him, he had lots of clumped up fur, like matted fur
Imagine.
from the back. And so I cleaned him, no vets, nothing. But then the day I was dreading came, and we all had to leave. But I didn't want to leave him. I was 13 and I was a reckless teenager. So I carried the dog and I jumped in the taxi car in the back. My parents didn't see it. I sat next to my young brother and sister. And when we got to Jericho, he got outside the car with me, and my dad said, "Oh my God, the dog is here." And I said, "Yeah, I brought him." And he said, "Are you mad?" I said, "Well, I'm not going to leave him there. No one likes dogs in this place." So anyway, my dad told me he's not going to make it. You know that. He's not going to make it. I said, "Well, I'm going to keep him. I don't care." And then it was time to get on the bus to get to the Israeli side. I got on the bus after packing, like shoving the luggage in the hold. And someone reported me. Someone said someone got on the bus with animals. So when someone came in and said, "Who's got animals here?" I didn't say a word. I just sat there. My dog is hiding near my legs, and then he came to me and he said, "Why do you have a dog here?" And he said, "Well, it's my dog." I was like a 13-year-old, just like shaking. And he told me, "Do you have any papers for?" I said, "No, I don't have any." And then he said, "Well, you can't have the dog on the bus, I'm afraid. Just take him down." And I said, "No, I can't take him down. It's my dog. Like he's traveling with me." And then he said, "Go and find a box and put him with the luggage." So I went downstairs. I was willing to do that. I just looked around for like any boxes, but they were getting impatient. They were just telling me, "Come on, we're moving," just like honking the. Oh, I came back, and when I got up the bus, he was trying to follow me, but they were shooing
Oh,
him, and he just like kept going around in circles. I just obviously like a child just running from one window to another, just like to see what's happening. And this dog is confused, not knowing where to go or what to do. And then what made this even worse is that people around you were making fun of you. They were saying, "Oh, it's just a dog." Like, imagine how broken someone would be. Like a child, this is the last thing you saw was the dog just being confused and left on his own. And yeah, I had to just sit there, pretend that I was all right. I think that was when I realized that, it's not right. The whole thing is just rotten. The way they treat animals, it's not how any people should live. Because, if you can't see how these dogs actually can treat us to have empathy, they can treat us to be friends, to be kinder to each other. I don't think uh, anything will change you.
completely, 100% agree. And there are, you said he was a black dog too,
Yes, exactly.
like,
And that made it worse, of course.
which, yeah, it makes it even worse because there's a hadith about killing black dogs. And yeah, like it's just dogs, like they're the sweetest. All they want to do is give love and receive love. That's it. They're
Yeah,
just like the purest, most beautiful animals. And to hate them so much,
it
to
doesn't
call
make.
them, yeah, they
Yeah, but
call
the
them
thing is,
dirty, filthy, and don't you can't touch them, and then you know what I mean, and all that. So it's like, what are you talking? You have to even kill them? Like, what's there's no humanity whatsoever.
yeah, no compassion, no humanity. I realized that like that day, but I think something uh was broken, like something broke inside me, because you just realize that what the hell? This is not right. No one, not even a hug. You'd expect a
Mhm.
hug at least. You just had to leave your dog behind, and your dog is just probably going to be hit by someone or like because it's like where all the buses are. So where would that dog go? Just spending years thinking what could have happened to well, you know, I was hoping at least we would make it to the Israeli side with him
Yeah,
because at least there he would have more chances. I'm sorry I'm saying that, but
the
my
truth.
personal experience, that's the reality of it.
And at 13 years old, you already recognize that.
Yeah, yeah, because on the Jordanian side and in Jericho, it was like the chaos. It was where like the chaos would kick in. But I think people would even behave better, like at the Israeli side. like, when we get to the Israeli checkpoint. So yeah, things are different.
Oh my gosh. We have a mutual friend, Mishaer,
Yeah, yeah.
and she has an equally heartbreaking story about her dog in Saudi Arabia. Like it's just this isn't a Palestine issue, you know what I mean? This isn't Palestinian people issue or Jordanian people, or this is unfortunately across
Yeah.
the board, the treatment of animals, specifically dogs. So thank you for sharing that with us, Fadi. I know that could not have been easy. I can't imagine the torture that you must have felt, that you still do feel. I mean, just hearing that story has, broken all of our hearts.
It's horrible. It's horrible. I don't think any child should be subjected to anything like that. But again, in the Middle East, the Muslim world, anything like that, it will happen any day.
Mhm.
In Saudi, the amount of times I saw kids just chasing stray dogs with sticks, or like even cats, the cats would get tortured as well. It's like the ideology does not breed compassion. You don't see compassion. You don't feel it anywhere.
Yeah.
Like I used to like that's the thing. I grew up there and I went to Saudi schools, but for some reason I never bought the like this animal hate. Like I did not buy into it. I felt like maybe there's something wrong with me because everyone around like it felt like I was the only one who really liked animals. So yeah, well there are
Yeah. That's the tragedy of all of this, is that at 13 years old, you already had more compassion in your heart than these adults around you, but it made you feel like you were the weird one. It's so perverted. It's so upside down. It's so broken. Like I was just saying to a friend of mine the other day who was telling me about how she is surrounded by all of this, you know, just difficult people, and she's feeling like she's the difficult one. And I told her about an episode of the Twilight Zone. It's a very old episode. It was black and white, where there was this girl and she had a beautiful face, but she was crying and she was horrified and she was upset and she wanted to have a surgery because she wanted to fix her nose. And then the camera pans out and eventually you see the doctors and the nurses and her family and everybody around her. They all have snouts. They all have pig noses. So they are the ones who have snouts, but she feels that she's broken. She feels that there's something wrong with her. And that's exactly how I feel when you're telling me this story, that they are these people around you have no compassion for animals, that have no humanity in them. But because you do, you felt that you were the weird one, or something was wrong with you, when in reality you were the only right one. Something is wrong with all of them. You're like such a miracle. It's like a school of fish all moving in one direction. Nobody thinks, but you're that one fish that was like, what's going on? Why are we going this way? Like to think about what it would take, like to think about how your kind of moral clarity, your kind of resilience to be able to survive in that atmosphere and to thrive and to grow and to become the critical thinker that you are, and sitting in front of us today speaking, so eloquently on all of these topics when you were never given any kind of opportunity to do so. You were never given the tools, you were never given the example. It's a true absolute miracle. And to hear that you were like that from such a young age is it's fascinating to me. You know, you're
Really
just a good
appreciate,
person.
really appreciate the kind words, Yasmine. I'm really flattered, but I think I don't know. It did help that my mum was at least kind. Like she was a very kind woman, and she like she just bought into it. You know,
Yeah.
she basically she was trying to make sense of the religion. Like, you know, she would come to me with that verse that says, "Mathna wa thulatha wa ruba'," you know, marrying more than one woman. And then she says, but God says, "Walan ta'dilu" at the end, which means he doesn't want men. "Walan ta'dilu" means you won't be just, you won't be fair. So basically that was her explanation. So she was trying to justify things that she knew God would not be like the creator of this planet would never say. So yeah, but
Huh.
also, oh, it's very difficult to just dismiss the whole thing and say, I don't believe it.
It is. Yeah. No, it is very difficult. And that mental gymnastics is very, very common because people have to survive, especially women. You have to
Yeah.
survive. And so whatever cognitive dissonance you have to maintain in order to survive, then that's what you'll do. Because it's the price of 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 knowing the truth, of understanding the reality, of seeing things clearly, the cost of that is so high. And so quite often people just choose to stay ignorant because it's what are my options? Be disowned by my family, be hated by all of my friends, start from
Mhm.
scratch and not know anything about the world and not have my community around me and not have my, it's too much. It's too
Yeah.
difficult. And
I was,
and especially for women, especially for girls, because then it's dangerous too, right? So
yeah, I
you
was
have
just
to find a
chatting.
way.
That reminded me of this Iraqi girl 3 years ago who told me she's going back to her family in Dubai, and she said, Look, I know you're atheist, you're an atheist, and I have my questions. I have loads of questions, but I choose to be blind. I just don't want to even get into
Yeah,
it."
yeah,
Exactly what you just said. Said there's no way I would go and tell my mom, "Mom, by the way, our entire religion is a lie."
yeah,
It's difficult, but
yeah,
people are trapped. This is what I would like people to understand.
yeah,
A lot of most, I don't want to say most Muslims, but a lot of us are actually trapped. There is no way out. You have to be, you have to have certain circumstances. You have to be really strong as well to actually leave.
yeah, yeah. The mental chains are the hardest to break. Yeah. Okay, wow, Fedi. You're like one of my longest episodes, but never have I made somebody who was feeling sick speak this long. I feel so bad, but also feel so grateful because this was an amazing conversation and I enjoyed every single second of it. The comments are just like going crazy, and everybody wants to follow you on Instagram. So you're gonna have to just like
Oh.
But nobody wants you to be a private account. Everybody wants to follow you. Everybody's a complete fan of yours now. They loved everything that you've had to say and want to hear more. So anyway, I just really wanted to thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. But before I let you go, I just want to give you the last word. Is there any sort of final parting advice or thoughts or something that you wanted to share with everybody before we log off?
I just want people to basically see Muslims as people, but at the same time understand that it's not a choice they actively made to be Muslims. Just try to uh, accommodate them maybe as just another group, but do not indulge the ideology itself because the ideology is what is oppressing them.
Yeah.
So that's what I want people to understand it's the ideology that is causing most of the suffering in the Muslim world, not what we've been duped to believe. The Western colonization and all that, as if we were like all tree huggers before the first white man arrived in the Middle East. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Fadi. That was perfectly stated. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Fadi, I hope you have some ginger there, some ginger tea or something, and that you can rest your throat and feel better. Take care, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
After hearing all that, you might be left wondering, what can I do? How can I help? Well, this is why I created a nonprofit called Free Hearts, Free Minds. We are the only organization dedicated exclusively to helping these free thinkers. We empower them with our programs and supportive community, lifting them up so they can heal, speak out, and begin to make positive changes, not just in their own lives, but within the broader community around them. If this is a cause that resonates with you and you want to make a difference, one way to do that is by donating to Free Hearts, Free Minds. Because not enough people care about this cause, we need people like you to help fuel this change. You can donate via our website, freeheartsfreeminds.com. Thank you. Every dollar you donate makes a difference.